Welcome one and all. Today we're going to look at the Encyclopedia of Chess Miniatures by Chess Informant. This is volume 1, and I believe more recently they did release a second volume. I don't currently own that one. And I thought it would make for a pretty useful series here on YouTube if we took a look at these miniatures. I'm not sure how far I will go. There's usually a lot to be learned from such a short game. So I feel like we'll see how much value we get, and if it continues to be something viewers are interested in, then we will continue doing them. In terms of my background and the analysis level that I can bring to these games, because I try not to rely on chess engines either, I'm around currently 1920 rapid on Lichess. So in terms of a FIDE rating, it's probably equivalent to a few hundred points lower, so maybe 1620 or so. With that being said, let's get started. And I've gone ahead and entered in, but not analyzed, the first 5 or so games in the book. And I figure we can analyze them together and glean what we can from them. The first couple, as I recall, were just super, super short. So, once we get past those, they'll get a little bit longer. So here we go. And you'll notice up in the top, I'm hiding the moves. And initially, we'll just kind of walk through the first couple, and then we'll start to maybe play some guess the move once we see something that seems puzzling to us. One thing I have left on is down below here, I have left the evaluation meter up. So that gives us a sense of when a key move is made. And we can use that to our advantage to know when it's probably appropriate to try to guess a move. So, all right. So white plays f4. And okay, that seems fine. Black plays e6. G4. So you'll notice on the evaluation meter right here, this game shows that black all of a sudden has a major advantage after this last move right here. So the only thing I'm really looking at is, well, clearly if there's a major advantage, it has to do with a piece that's currently available to go out. So you could either be looking at like the bishop going out, queen going out, maybe the knight or something, but the knights aren't going to be anything major, right? They're not going to be able to provide that level of swing from their home position. So really, these are the kind of moves I'm looking at, and I'm looking at the squares, right? And as you can see in this case, if the queen was right here, right? Just turn that off. Then we would actually have a check. And as you can see here, if we were to point at the king, we don't actually have anywhere the king can go, so it's checkmate. So very short, very sweet. And as we can see, checkmate. So that's it for the first one. They're going to get longer, but this is just the very beginning. But one thing that we can do to have a takeaway from this is if we kind of internalize this kind of pattern. So when you're on the king side, and if you weaken these two pawns, really it's this diagonal, right? But doing so via these pawns is one way to do it. This diagonal, if this is weakened, that creates a lot of checkmate opportunities. So we should remember that. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to game 2. And we'll switch the board to be in white's perspective. All right, e4, g5. That's already, now that I look at that before I move on, isn't that kind of a strange move? Normally you might see like, g6, right? g5 is a bit of a strange one. Okay. White decides to play Knight f3. Okay. That seems reasonable. Another thing that I might have considered was perhaps d4, because that would both, secure the center and also capture a free piece. But, I'm guessing both are probably considered top moves. Let's take a look real quick. So according to the engine, both, yeah, look, top two moves, d4 and knight c3 are both pretty close to the same strength. All right. So white played top two move, knight c3. And then what does black do? Okay, so they play f5. And at first glance, I would take a pause here because this is the first pivotal moment of this game and see if you can figure out why that was a bad move. So in this case, at first glance, it looks like, it's challenging the center, perhaps trying to weaken this, right? But one thing that caught my eye was, remember this thing we just internalized about the king side and weakening those two pawns? That creates the opportunity for this same pattern. And that's exactly what white did. So that's literally checkmate again. There's nothing that can be done. So again, a short and sweet one. And I think if memory serves, the remainder get a little bit longer from here onward. So we won't save that. All right. And we'll put it in black's perspective. Okay. Let's take a look. D4, F6, Bishop G5. Nothing crazy yet. C6. So this looks like, I would normally see this move to anticipate supporting the next pawn. Technically it could be this side, but usually it's more of a center push. Alternatively, it could also be to provide a diagonal for the queen to do a check. In fact, that kind of looks nice, doesn't it? So you've got you've got basically this queen coming out, and it would threaten to capture. So if white does nothing, then this would be considered a threat on the next move. So let's see, what does white do? Okay, well that kind of seems like this move is still legit. So check with a attack on both pieces at the same time. So, okay, boom. That's it for that one. So slightly longer than the last. All right, we are on to game number 4. Let's try this out. So we've got C4. So that's the English opening here. D5, directly challenging it. Now, typically, you don't want to respond and immediately capture. I suppose, you could do something like take, and then threaten the queen and have it go back so you get a little bit of initiative there. Let's see what white decides to do. Oh, he does. Okay, so take, and black decides to just sit on that piece, take it on the following and just develop. Okay. White then chooses to support the pawn. So interestingly, this looks like it's hanging because the black knight could just take it. So I guess the question is this truly hanging? And it doesn't look like it is, because if the knight takes, then we use that same pattern for checking the king, and then we can recapture the knight as part of that. So let's see. Black falls for the bait, and white goes ahead and checks the king. And that's the end of this miniature. It's implied based on the advantage. Take a look at the engine analysis just to get a sense. So yeah, it looks like it's, plus 3.5 or so, 3.4. Okay. So that is game 4. And let's move on to the final 5th one of this video. All right, so we're going to switch to black's perspective. D4, knight f6, knight d2. So typically I feel like when I see this move, it's either one of two reasons. Either it's to end up developing it to this square, or it's to support a pawn push of this kind. So yeah, it could be either scenario. Let's see. And black responds. I guess it doesn't really okay, interesting. So we're going for a direct confrontation, and this also looks at first blush like it's hanging a pawn, because the knight's going to have to move out of the way, and then perhaps there's a way to support that. But so let's see, what does white do? So they take. We have to find a place to put the knight. So the only valid squares are, basically these 3. If you were to put it over here, then it would just be, chomped by the knight. If we put it back here, that seems kind of depressing to put it right back where it came from. If we put it here, well, then we can start to get chased by pawns, which just seems like a waste. So I'm guessing we're going to probably do something like this. Yep. Okay. And then white makes a move. What do they do? Okay. So that chases the knight away. So based on the evaluation bar, we get really big advantage from this move for black. So taking this pawn, while yes, it recaptures what we already gave up, that does not seem like enough of an advantage. So that's not going to be the answer we're looking for here. This, looks like a nice target, but we don't have any supporting pieces on the field, and we have to make a decision right now or lose our knight. This is kind of interesting. So it threatens the queen, and so if I go like this, the pawn captures, but now these would be open. And we could go like this. And if we did that, it's another similar scenario where the only thing that could really happen is, so here, let's walk through that one more time. So threatening the queen, which is basically a forced recapture. Take. check. The only way to block is this pawn, and then take again, and then that's mate. So let's take a look. Oh, looks like that's the end of it. But if we were to go ahead and take a look at our favorite engine analysis here. So what we're really looking for is F takes, interesting. Notice that they're not even going down that path. They're not even going to try to take the recommended move. The top move is knight from G to F3. So basically, they're recommending like just completely ignore it. You see how the knight just takes the queen, and then the king has to recapture. I mean, at that point, yeah, the game's white is obliterated, and they haven't even like started yet. Like we're just at the very beginning. So that's actually a pretty useful pattern that is not very intuitive and looks kind of suicidal at first glance. All right, so that is the first 5 games of the Encyclopedia of Chess Miniatures, and these are from what they call basic examples. So once we get to the puzzles that are beyond the basic examples, they will probably reach around 15 to maybe upwards of 20 moves. I'm not sure where the specific publisher limited the move count for what they consider to be miniatures, but expect that these games will probably become about 3 to 4 times the move count that the current ones were in this video. All right, well, I hope you learned something from some of these patterns. And if you didn't, that's not a really big deal either, because we will be going through some more sophisticated ones as the series progresses. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.